Welcome to the channel. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. Join me today where I'll be reviewing for you a brand new release by Milifortic. This is the R088 and you can tell it looks rather different. It doesn't have your traditional time telling dial setup. That's because this is a jump hour complication, a minimalistic design using the Seagull ST17 jump hour automatic movement. Now, I have looked at a few jump hours before. There was a time when so many brands were going towards the jump hour movement. And one of the reasons is that the movement is quite cheap and it is quite reliable. Now, I will say I was expecting a little more from this dial version. In the pictures, I think now due to the way they took the pictures, the dial comes across as having a very subtle sun ray or something. It definitely doesn't look as flat as it does in hand. So I was expecting just a bit more depth from the dial. Now in hand, it is quite a flat color. And it's worth noting this because they also do this in a white. And in the pictures, it looks a bit more like a silvery white, and one image clearly shows a sunray effect. And then you also have one in a plain black, which that's fine if that's flat. So I think it's worth really identifying the exact dial that you want to go for. But as I said, I was expecting something a little more, but what I have here is a rather flat color. And it's actually quite bright. Now I'm going to try and get the camera to show you exactly the color that I'm seeing. Yeah, because due to lighting and whatnot, you don't get the exact color. So yeah, that is closer to the color that I have in hand. There's a lot more green in it. It's very bright teal. So if you're expecting something which is a bit subtle, a bit cooler in terms of the color, yeah, that's definitely not it. This is definitely a very bright teal green. But dial color aside, it still has a few nice features. So the sub dial at 6. Now usually you find this on other watches too. You've got these concentric circles just where the sub dial seconds hand is. A very clean aesthetic. Now with the format of the dial, the logo is offset, it's on the side, and then on the corresponding side they've gone automatic with the water resistance. The white blocky text, don't know how I feel about that particular font, but it does help give the dial some symmetry. Now in terms of the makeup of the dial, you've got these rather thin polished applied Arabics, switching over between thin pencil-like batons and of course the Arabics that you see. You also have this off-white ring which goes around the dial. So it's a nice break into that color. And of course the focal point on the dial is that 3 that you can see. Now that is what the jump hour is. So we're currently at 325, it's going on to 326. And the beveling on that window, just look how large that beveling is. Very precise, very clean and neatly done. It's definitely a really nice feature there. And Milifortic here give us well finished watches, to be honest. It's just that my personal thing with the dial and what I thought it wasn't, which is why it put me off a little. But now that I look at it, I think the watch needs a really good strap to help set it off. Now they send theirs on these basic ones, which I've complained about before. I haven't got anything that much better, to be fair. This is a perforated sort of leather strap, but it still looks better than what they sent it on. So ideally you want something, maybe a bit of fabric on there, maybe try and get that shade onto the strap, or even a off-white contrast stitch, which will help complement the colors that you see. And then it will transform the watch into something which looks quite nice, and it's going to look nice on wrist too. Thing with these watches is it's a different complication, especially if you're a newcomer into the world of watches. AliExpress is a place where you can experience so many different movements for a very low price, and this is only £100. It's in line with what most of the watches are. It has sapphire crystal, it's got a screw down crown, 100 meters of water resistance, as you can see on the dial, screw down case back. And in terms of the case, this is the same case as the Tangerine one that we saw not too long ago. And Milifortic do have a handful of cases that they use, and they reuse, in fact, with just different aesthetics. So this case features the high dome sloped bezel, very slim, which gives the emphasis on the dial, of course. And then you've got the brushed lugs with really good definition on there. So those lugs, even though they're fully brushed, the curvature is visible off the case, and you do have quite a defined lug. So just to give you an indication of how the jump hour works, the screw down crown comes out, you're at position 0. Once you take it to 1, and I think that is the only one, you can actually move that mini hand. And as you'll notice, one thing which I think is quite cool about this watch is the instant switch over, and it actually goes backwards as well. So 5 and 6, which is pretty cool. And again, it's a different way to tell the time. You know, sometimes these watches come across as novelty, but I think the jump hour is probably one of the more practical movements that you can see. The more practical, unorthodox movements, should we say. The movement doesn't hack, but you do have a very handy hand winding feature. Now, the case dimensions also mean that it's going to fit a 6.5-inch wrist really well, and obviously bigger wrists. You've got quite a compact lug to lug. The thickness, not an issue, it's only 11 millimeters, so it can go under many cuffs. But yeah, 38 mil, good overall sort of case. Due to that thinness of the bezel, you know, you could say maybe 38, 39 the way it comes across, because you really have a fine edge, and there's just a lot more dial area to look at. But legibility wise, it's partially there. I mean, it's not super amazing, right? But you can see it. It's those polished hands. They're quite slim. The Arabics are quite slim, so it makes it come across as quite a dainty watch. So visibility, depending on how you are, where you are, you might have to just take a couple of seconds to see what time it is. But you can definitely see the hour in the center on that large beveled window. So this is the Milifortic R088. Now over to you guys. Let me know your thoughts on these jump hour watches. And one more thing on this particular watch, if you were to get it, what dial color would you go for? So that's it from me. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.